Steve, I think it's still too bright out. Can't film with that. Do you like it, don't you? You like how bright it is? Hey everybody! Welcome to my porch. Today, I'm sick. Have been for about a week. So I'm in personal quarantine for the week. So this is my porch. We got Steve with us here. Right there. Hi, Steve. And today we're going to be talking about the Red Room. If you haven't watched my previous video, I was raised in a haunted house inheritance. I suggest you do so. There's a couple of things in there that describe the layout of the house and the history of the house that I don't want to go over again. The Red Room was probably the most infamous story about Hell House within my large family. Everyone knew about the stories of the Red Room, even people who had never visited the house, which as a kid I always found kind of strange, hearing people tell me stories about a house that they had never visited, that I visited all the time where my grandma lived. Many different people slept in the Red Room over the course of the many years that our family owned Hell House. But the first person to own it was my aunt. When she was a young toddler, she slept back in the Red Room, which they also called the Little Room. She began waking up almost every night at around 1:20 a.m. and coming out and talking to my grandparents about seeing a pretty red light that woke her up. Now, as I've mentioned before, my grandfather does not believe in the paranormal. So after a few nights of her doing this, he decided to sleep in her bedroom on the floor. So he fell asleep and was woken up at about 1:20 a.m. by a bright, glowing red light that he said danced in through the window and bounced around the room. My aunt told him, as a wee child, that that was what was waking her up at night. Now, when I was a toddler, my grandma lived there, and I would go over to visit whenever my mom would visit, and I usually played in the Red Room, because it was furnished up to be a playroom with a bed in there, and I would usually fall asleep. And there was a very particular night, I don't remember this, but I've heard my mom tell the story many, many times. There was a very particular night, she was pregnant with my brother and decided to go and see her mom, my grandma. So when we get there, I start playing in the playroom and fall asleep. And my mom and grandma sit in the kitchen at the kitchen table and start talking. And around 1:20 a.m., I supposedly came into the kitchen and said that I was woken up by a bright red light that wouldn't leave me alone. And at that point, my mom and grandma packed up our things and went to our house instead for the night. Grandma didn't want to stay there. And after that, I asked Grandma, how do you live there? Have you ever slept in that room? And she said that, yeah, she has slept in that room before, but she doesn't anymore because she never saw a red light, but she did see supposedly dazzling rainbow lights that would wake her up at night so frequently that she had to change rooms again. Now, what I do remember from the Red Room was what I experienced when we moved in there when I was about 12. My bedroom was the front room, which, if I laid in my bed in a certain way, I could see down the hallway to the doorway of the red room. This prompted me to move my bed to the other side of the room so I could only see slightly into the living room, but never down the hallway. The first night that we lived there, I was pretty scared. In my previous video, I talked about the ticking clocks. If you haven't seen that, you probably should. But along with the ticking clocks, I also saw my first real experience that I remember of the red room. My parents had to take the red room, and they had already fallen asleep by 1:20 a.m. As you've noticed in these stories, 1:20 a.m. was sort of a hot spot in time for Hell House. I don't know what it is about it, but if I was awake by midnight, I was staying awake until 1:30 to make sure nothing weird happened. And if it did, I would be there for it, because I'm much more scared of things that I don't know are happening than something I see with my eyes. Except I didn't like seeing the red lights in the red room, because the first night we were there, I was awake because the ticking was driving me mad. So I went out to get a glass of water from the bathroom, and from my parents' room, they slept with their door open, all I could see was this sort of undulating red light, and I knew it was in there around the corner, and I didn't want to see it. It filled me with a sense of dread, like what have I gotten myself into? Why have we moved here, sort of thing. And I ran back to my bedroom, and I didn't close the door because I don't like that, but I could still see the red glowing into the hallway from my door. So that first night, I did close the door. It didn't stop the red from coming in under the door, but up on the bed, I could kind of ignore it and get some sleep. But I eventually, after the first few weeks of this, got really used to the red glow and just kind of gave up. There was no reason to be scared of it. It didn't do anything other than glow. And I kind of lost interest in it, except for when friends would try to visit and spend the night. I would have to give them, fair warning, my house is going to try to scare you. Here's the different ways it's going to do that. Don't look down the hallway. If you're trying to go to the bathroom, just kind of shield your eyes from anything you might see. Because, while I got used to the red light really quickly, most of my friends did not. And a lot of our family members didn't either. We had an extended family member that used to visit quite often, and whenever they would stay there, he insisted on them either getting a hotel or staying with a different relative overnight. He would come and visit our house, for sure, but once night fell, he left. He'd never spent an entire night in that house and refused to. I could never get out of him why, what he saw, what he experienced, but he was shaken to the core by the house. And a lot of my other relatives would ask me questions about the red room and the other occurrences in the house, and for a long time I really enjoyed always having something I was interested in to talk to with relatives, even though I had to go through some highly terrifying experiences to get these stories. I'm grateful and I love them, and I'm so excited to be sharing them with you. There were many entities in Hell House. Most of them I don't know what they were, why they were there. The red lights was only one of them, and it was reoccurring. To this day, I don't know what it was, why it came in at 1:20 a.m., why it mostly showed itself to children or people who were already scared of it. My dad didn't see it very often, even though it was in his room, but my mom did, and I saw it practically every night, while my brother didn't. Of course, I stayed up a lot later than he did, and his room didn't face the bedroom as much with the way his bed was set up. But next time, I will tell you about the other entities that resided in Hell House, so that you get to know the individuals of the home, and maybe we'll discuss what they might have been, what they could be, and what they're most likely not. Let me know in the comments if you've ever experienced anything like this. I'd like to know what you experienced and your theories on what it might have been. If you like my content and want to see more, please click subscribe. And I will see you in a few weeks to talk about some more writing tips. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Maybe character creation? And then after that, we'll come back to this one with some individuals of Hell House. I look forward to the next few videos with you, and I'm glad you sat through this one. Stay safe out there. Bye.